When you really take a step back and look at Helck episode 22, you can kind of sum it down to as one character stops being a racist towards Demon because he understands that damn, Demon booty be good. And then you have Best Boy seemingly dying. That's Helck 22 in a nutshell, and I swear to God if they actually commit to killing Azurdra, I will be a very salty camper. Not in the way that I'll hate Helck and write it off for good, but I definitely will be salty. You can kill any character in this show, including Helck. I like my boy. I like my jolly green giant. But go ahead and kill him if you gotta. But not Azurdra. I've really grown to appreciate his character, and I'm kind of torn on where they're going with this because, I don't know. The preview makes it look like a Helck-dominated episode. We have 24 episodes for the season. I kind of feel like we'll focus back on that moment in 24, but if they pull the Jujutsu Kaisen card and drop me a backstory after seeing that nonsense, I'm not going to have a lot of confidence, but if my boy manages to pull through and get that W, it will just cement him as not only best boy of the show, but best boy and goddamn one of the best boys of the season. There's a lot to choose from, but I don't know. There's something about what they've done with him. Maybe it helps that he uses a form of combat that I usually despise or think is boring, but manipulating the tree roots and everything, my boy was a one-man army, and he gets stabbed for it by a really cool design after Angel Boy kind of like realizes that maybe Demon Booty isn't so bad and gets corrupted into basically Lucifer, and I'm like, god damn, this Spider-Man Noir filter they're using on him is pretty badass. Now I do have a full live reaction to today's wonderful Helck episode available on my Patreon, so if you would like to see my full and cut thoughts to today's episode, it's over there if you're interested. Now, like I said last week, Daddy's home. I came back after getting smokes and some milk from the store, and unlike your father, I did indeed return. So we have a couple of episodes left, and they are not pulling their punches. Like, this shit's getting more insane the closer we get to this end of the season, and I'm really hoping we get a third core. Now, obviously, this was announced as a 2-core production, which, yes, no surprise, we're at episode 22 out of 24, but we know that there is still another core's worth of content that they can adapt for the main Helck story, and I'm really hoping we get it, because while on one hand, I do see potentially dealing with maybe part of the threat, like, I just feel like there's still so much, like, just the fact that they had, like, 6 episodes worth of Helck backstory, there's so much from the past still left to explore, it feels, and it still feels like there's a lot of untapped potential for the future. Because I think one of the big things that kind of like gets really hammered in the characters' faces is that if you just stop the humans and what they're doing right now, there's bigger, crazier shit that's going to occur, and the demons aren't going to be able to deal with it. So it's almost like a necessary evil from their point of view. So even if we do resolve the demon-human storyline, it still feels like there's something else waiting for us, or at least that's kind of my interpretation. But it is interesting because I like what they ended up doing with this kind of like, at first it kind of felt random, like a random love story was just being kind of thrown in on us. But surprisingly, I kind of came out appreciating it similar to what happened with Helck in the flashback, because if we remember, when the flashback was wrapping up, we had like the death of his kind of love, even though it wasn't really a love from his side in terms of like a romantic, she was hustling, she was trying to get this boy on dates. And the idea that you kind of have just Edil pop up and be like, you know, interestingly, feeling like there was 2 characters here. One was trying to kill, and then one was almost like infatuated with her. And the idea that by the end, I mean, it just felt like a parting scene very similar, but her not wanting to abandon, and him pulling away before he does something too crazy. And I think the idea that there's this failsafe, because at first, when dumbass pops up saying like, oh, I'm gonna stab him, or I'm gonna get stabbed by you, it's like, well, what are you gonna do? These characters, when they die, just get reborn and they get stronger. So go ahead, stab our boy all you want. And he's like, oh, actually, we got a failsafe brain blast here. And then he becomes a vegetable. And I'm like, oh, okay, actually, you're pretty intelligent. You're a scumbag, but you actually do have the failsafe, which a lot of characters fail to have when they're making an army of monsters. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've seen in stories where like some dumbass evil makes something that becomes more powerful than they can control. And it's like, well, why didn't you think of the failsafe, man? Like, did you really think this was just going to go smoothly? And then this crazy bastard actually has the failsafe. And I'm like, oh, prayers are answered, I guess, just for the character I least wanted it for, but it makes for good storytelling. But I do like the idea, because ultimately, when you think of Helck with the backstory, which is another reason why the backstory was so great, you know, he very much saw the demons in a way that no one else did. So when he tries to come back, even the characters who love and respect Helck, it's like, Helck, my boy, you got persuaded by evil creatures. The idea that, you know, there's this brainwashing going on for the humans, and the fact that there's some sort of connection that was being built up between Hyura and him, and the idea that just it was slowly breaking to the point that, like, even if she didn't really understand like why this man was seemingly just so attached to her, the fact that it was breaking through and we got actually a pretty emotional story between them. I can sum it down to as a man stops being racist towards demons for demon booty, and that is very funny to think of, but that is kind of what happened. But at the same time, it is deeper than just that meme, but the meme's funnier to say, so I'm going to stick with it. But my favorite part was hands down the glimpses we had with Azurdra, because it starts off pretty fun, and then he pretty much just says, all right, bet, I'm going to use all my magic tree energy, hold off this army. And had he sacrificed the lives of his people, he could have probably dealt with all this, and all's well that ends well from an evil point of view. But that's not who he is. And he was chilling, he was doing what he needed to. Unfortunately, when the big boss comes in looking as cool and shadowy as he does, yeah, it's just a matter of time before he gets stabbed. And it's weird because the initial stab, the impact, I'm like, he can probably be alright. Because when you think about it, right, Helck started off with this man covered in bandages, coughing up blood almost every other scene. He was a goofy character at first, but I also kind of look at him as like someone who can get stabbed repeatedly and be okay. It wasn't until the next slash that I was like, okay, you drop a backstory here? I'm probably gonna believe he's dead. I hope not. I don't want spoilers. I'm just saying, it's very 50-50 on where they're going here, because characters be dying, characters can die, and honestly, goddamn, I don't think there's enough Helck smiles in the world to recover from the bullshit that we're gonna experience. But what was very interesting was the kind of, just subtle, just casually, they're just like, oh, we're just gonna sprinkle something in. Hey, remember that snowfall that pretty much caused all the humans to become monstrosities? Looks like it was this girl, and I'm like, wait a second, because last episode, when she got introduced, she had like a scary moment that got brushed aside as a joke. This episode, I'm the king, and I'm like, okay, I believe, oh, it's a joke. But I just felt like something was wrong. Not that she's purposely evil, but like something's broken. And then over the course of the episode, we get this like amnesia plot line, or at least that's kind of what they're building into. And as soon as we get to the king's throne room, she starts throwing hands, and I'm like, well, rip you, bozo, like you ain't making it out. And just so casually, the idea that apparently this, you know, she's explaining almost like it's like she's releasing power. And I'm like, wait a second, that looks oddly familiar. And I'm pretty damn sure the father of this girl is using his daughter as a weapon of mass destruction to create monstrosities, keeping her locked up in a tower, and somehow her memories are getting frayed and fractured because of it. What in the actual hell is wrong with characters in this show? But thank you, Helck, for delivering once again plot twist after plot twist and just incredible things. Because even if it's not exactly that, I gotta be close to being on the money here. But either way, Helck be great. Like, I just absolutely love this show. I've been loving it every single week. Like I said, even if I wasn't covering it on YouTube for a good while after, I think it was episode 11 was the last one I stopped before last week, I was still watching it every week over on Patreon, and I have absolutely loved what they've done. I hope we get a third core. I feel like there's a lot of potential with one, but if they can just leave off this core with some sort of satisfying resolution, I'd be okay with that as well. But let me know your thoughts and feelings, especially if you're a manga reader. I've heard a lot of people hyping up some of the later portions, and it seems like based on my comment section last week, people have been enjoying it, especially if they've read the manga. But let me know your feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell. Like I mentioned, we have full live reaction over on my Patreon if you're interested. And hey, while you're over there, you also get a video shout out. Alright, so we have Intar students, Joseph Siri, John, Guilmame Frogler, Ellie Skur, Willow W, Alexander Flakowski, and Fozzie Wolf. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care. Have a good one.